All right, so now we are streaming live. Let me take this off because last time it screwed everything up. So the past couple times we've done this, it's been a
Nobody showed?
no. People showed up, but they showed up to a disaster for the first 10 minutes.
Oh, good grief.
Just because of the sometimes the going live and Zoom don't play nice from time to time. All right, I think we're good here.
Good.
And we are live and recording, so got everything here. So what's going on, everybody? 1 o'clock Friday, actually like 1:06 here. I think we're having a lot better job of getting live on Facebook and in the group. The last couple of times it's been a disaster if you weren't just watching. I was kind of going over that with Ted to prepare him in case we had some more issues. But as I talked about in the post a few days ago, got Ted Rykoski. Am I saying that right?
Yep, you're right on.
Ted I want to say Rykoski every time I say it.
That too. Yeah.
Ted is, like I said, he owns Sandler's Training here in Atlanta, and Sandler's the largest training, I guess, across the globe. It's the largest training program or
more training hours delivered than any other organization in the globe. That's right. Yeah.
That's crazy. With like 250 different countries that Sandler's in, and I mean it's legit. I can tell you that because I've been through it obviously myself. But you know, Ted and I have been working together a lot over the last couple of years, just within the Chamber of Commerce here locally, and gotten to know each other a little bit that way. And Ted's a bulldog whenever it comes to helping you close more deals, or if you've got a sales team that just really needs to come up with good processes and close more accounts, or maybe it's generating more accounts through cold calls, through lead generation, you name it. It's second to none whenever it comes to that programming. So I don't want to take all of that. Ted, if you want to give a real quick overview, and then we can kind of just jump right into what it was that we were talking about ahead of time and what we've talked about that we want to share with everybody.
So I think you covered what we do pretty well. I mean, bottom line, it comes down to we're experts in sales. So when we look at sales, there's really four things. It's the skills training. So depending on what that sale is, it could be, you know, I do a proposal and somebody says, Ted, you're too expensive. Do I know what to say? And then do I have the will to say it? So both are important. So that skills training, when it comes to that, it's great to have that type of training, but for some companies, organizations, they don't know whether or not they've got the right people on board. So, a business I work with may need a real business hunter. They've got to go out there and find new accounts. And if you don't find the right person for that role, you could bring somebody on and they could fail. And then it's sales structure. So as companies grow, at what point in time does it make sense to bring on a manager? And what does the cadence look like if there's a sales team, and then sales strategy? When I think about that, it's, 2019, 90% of our business is going to come from new business, or it's all going to be the accounts that we've got. We're just going to grow our base and build our business from there. So we kind of deal in all ends of sales, and in a nutshell, that's what we do.
Yeah. And so, I think one of the biggest things that, especially with the small business side of things, whenever it comes to the word sales, I think a lot of people, they put so much pressure around that term or that word sales whenever it comes to their business or what it is that they're doing. And they don't really look at the sales comes in many different forms. It could be your receptionist. It could be your front office admin. Like we were just talking, and we'll touch on the medical facility here in a second that we were talking about, that they increase their no-show rate and all of that just from a simple thing, changing a simple part of their technique. But whenever somebody calls into your business, that starts a sales process. Yes, you may not term it as a sales process because you don't view them as a salesperson, but it is like there needs to be something there, and it is a sales thing. It's a sales technique, a sales process. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Do you come across that a good bit?
I don't know that I need to add anything to that. I think anybody, I don't care who's on the call today, I think we can all think about an experience where we talked to somebody on the phone, or we walked into a place and just got the wrong attitude from somebody who, you're right, customer facing. Everybody who's customer facing, I don't care what their title is, they're in sales. It's delivery driver, front desk person, whoever answers the phone, customer service, everybody's in sales. You get that wrong person where they're snotty, they don't treat you with some kind of respect. Yeah, I mean, I will refuse to do business with a business if I've got a bad experience. So you're right on target, man. Everybody's in sales.
So we're on Facebook right now. That's typically the way that people will come in.
Yep.
So as people are watching, put something down in the comments. Let me know who was here. I'm monitoring the comments, questions, because that's generally where the most value is going to come. We've got some stuff that we'll go through and just kind of do a Q&A, but there is a lot of business owners, regardless if you're a solopreneur, you're just starting off, or if you've got a team of people, or even a Fortune 500 company, you got a sales team that's actively out there generating opportunities. This is an opportunity to ask from a professional that's in it every single day and can give you feedback for free, because he's just given his time, which we're grateful for here as well. So put your questions in here. And like I said, it may be around cold calling. It may be around closing more opportunities. So put something in there. Aaron, what's up, man? Haven't talked to you in a while. Hope all is well. So if you've got any questions or you're logging on, put them on Facebook. I'm monitoring that. That's why I keep looking away. And then we'll bring that up and we'll have Ted address it. So one thing that Ted and I kind of jumping into the process and techniques, and Ted, I'm going to let you kind of go a little bit more in detail on this, but you were talking about a medical facility, and this is where we come in, where people say they don't have a sales position or they don't have a sales thing happening because they're a medical facility, but really it's still all about sales. Business things are still the same.
Yep.
So I think what you were saying is they were having an issue, and if you have an issue with this in your business, this is a good thing to tune into, but they're having an issue with no-shows. Was that right?
Yeah, so it's industry-wide. Let me take a step back, and first off, thank you for the opportunity to connect with you guys. I wasn't in this group, so thanks for the invite. Very happy to be here and happy to answer any questions. What I was talking to you about, and to kind of frame this up, Brandon was talking about the types of people who are in here. So we completely recognize that there may be some businesses in here that are retail businesses that don't necessarily have an out-facing sales team where people are leaving. You may have people that are dialing in or walking in, and you're greeting people. So maybe you're not out there prospecting per se. So we talked about, when he mentioned medical, I was just listening to a podcast. I'm always listening to some kind of sales related podcast just so I can improve my own skills. And they were talking about the industry challenge within the medical practices. So if you think about the no-shows that offices will get, I don't care what kind of practices they're in, they get tons of them. So they'll have patients that schedule appointments and they don't show up. And if they don't call, and I'm sure you see it at your own office, my office, I know I see it right there at the front desk. If I'm late, I've got a call. If I show up late without contacting them, they'll cancel me. You got to be on time. Those things typically run, it's got to be seamless. They got to get people in and out of there. So no-shows cost them a lot of money. Industry-wide, it's to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. So they're trying to figure out what they can do to ensure that they can cut out on some of those no-shows. So what they did is they changed one little process in setting that next appointment. So think about dentist offices where, it's once every, it could be 3 months or 6 months, but you're going back on a regular basis. I've got a doctor I see on a regular basis. So when I'm done, you got the front desk person that hands over the card with your next appointment on it. The one change that they made is, rather than the front desk person writing down the date and the time, they handed the blank card to the patient, and they talked about the next day and time they were coming in and had the patient write down the date and the time. Just doing that practice, it cut back on the no-shows by 18%.
Jeez.
So, didn't solve it completely, but one little minor change, and it was a big impact on the business.
Yeah, and that's, and a lot of times it's just a small thing that can make a big difference. whenever it comes to sales, or whenever it comes to obviously decreasing the amount of no-shows. I mean, obviously in our business, we try to automate a lot of that follow-up as well, which decreases the amount of no-shows just from sending a text out 24 hours and reminding them. I mean, just little stuff like that that people don't think about until they bring somebody in like yourself to kind of point that out and say, look, you need to be doing this.
Yeah, it's the I use a little story in training, and it's I think it's the season, the 2014-2015 season. Jordan Spieth, you know that name, right?
Yeah.
He was ranked first PGA. You know who Chris Kirk is?
Yeah.
Okay, so most people that I ask that, if they know who Chris Kirk is, they don't know. Chris actually ranked 28th that season. I think that's the number. The difference in the average was 68.9 versus 69.9. That was the average for their scores per round. 1.4% difference in their scores.
Yeah.
Chris Kirk made $2.7 million that year. That's not bad at all. I'd be very happy with $2.7 million. Jordan Spieth made $12 million. So 1.4% difference in their performance yielded a 344% difference in pay.
Yeah.
Because the slightest changes that sometimes make a big difference. So
sure.
Just that, handing that card over. Today in training, I training every Friday. We were talking about the difference between, we're asking questions, the why do you versus when, starting off a question with when rather than why. And it's just a slight difference, but tonality makes a big difference. And sometimes just that question why can be accusatory, and people get defensive.
Yep.
So just phrasing the question with a why comes at it from a different angle. The answers you can get are very dramatically different.
Yeah. So it's talking on that and kind of go in that direction, because I like what you were saying there. What are some recommendations that you make to sales rep, whether it's a small business owner, maybe they're a solopreneur, up to big companies that have a sales team? Those little tweaks. I mean, what's kind of like the most common issues that you see with these reps or with a business owner who is trying to create more opportunities and have a better at bat every time? Because especially I know in my business, I mean, you got to take advantage of every opportunity you get. So small tweaks like saying when or why, as opposed to another question, are very easy things to implement.
Yeah. So it's a great question. And honestly, there's no broad answer I'm going to give that's going to apply to everybody's business that's on the call today. So what I'll say is that if we're going to talk in generic terms, number one is the failure of most people is that they'll wing it. So there's not necessarily a process that they'll walk a suspect or prospect through. So that's one of the problems that they have. They may have the same scenario, same type of prospect or suspect, and they'll have two different processes by which they bring them through their sales process. And It's just because they wing it. So I think the first thing that a business needs to do is literally document the right way to bring a suspect to a prospect. So, what is my perfect client? What does that person, that business, that team look like? And then understand what the lookalikes are. And then how do we get that person from a suspect to a prospect? What are the things? And when I say suspect, not everybody's a prospect, right? So when I'm out there cold calling, if I've got a conversation with somebody, we may be a good fit. If we're a good fit, now they're a prospect. If we're not a good fit, they were a suspect that I've disqualified because their business, maybe they've got a problem I can't solve, or maybe they don't have a problem. Maybe they've got a problem, but you know what? They just don't want to deal with me right now, and I'm never going to break through to them. Rather than me wasting my time and calling them a prospect, I just move them out of my process. But what is that process by which you become a suspect to a prospect to a client?
Yeah.
And if they are a client, I'm boarding them and making sure that we follow through on a consistent basis. And I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, it definitely did. I want to ask another question that's a little off from that, but one thing that we deal with and we see a lot, and there's even obviously a lot of companies out there and a lot of businesses within this group where they are doing a lot of lead gen practices. So it may not be from a sales rep or a trained professional, but they're out there doing something, whether it's Google ads or Facebook ads or just organic SEO type practices. And leads are being submitted. So you're getting website inquiries. So you drive them to your website, and let me know if I'm losing you here, but you drive them to a website, they submit their contact us information. What, if from your standpoint, interested to get it from your standpoint, because obviously we have our own opinions.
Sure.
Whenever somebody submits information through the website, you get that notification that there's a lead that has come in.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do any training around the proper timeframes to get back to that lead? How do you go about starting that conversation? What's your thoughts on all that?
So, great question. My sarcasm wants to come out of me and say, yeah, follow up whatever, because it's always going to be there.
Yeah.
Obviously,
which is a joke, so everybody knows. Yeah,
I'm kidding around.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not sitting here waiting for the phone to ring. So you've got the people that say, yeah, I'm not going to follow up right away. I'll give it a day or two. I don't want to look desperate. The reality is, follow up as soon as you possibly can. Does that mean 2 minutes from now? No. I got an email yesterday. I happened to be in the middle of making some phone calls and some outreach on my own. I didn't see it for about 90 minutes after I got the email, but I could have been in a meeting. But as soon as I saw it, I responded back. I tried calling the person. I sent an email. And that's sufficient. If I let that sit for 3 days, and first off, doing what I do, that's unacceptable, right? I mean, if I'm out of the office, that's one story, but I got to make sure that somebody's replying to this person, and most likely it's going to be me.
Yeah. What do you have recommendations as far as what's too much to follow up? So let's say you do follow up with them.
Right.
Yeah. So I may be striking a nerve with you, because you probably get this a lot, but whenever somebody does submit something through the website, you got their inquiry, you get the notification, hey, you got a lead that came through your website. You get back to them, you call them, they don't pick up, you email them, shit, you may even text them, I don't know. But you try all three of those things. When do you start back that cycle?
Yeah, so they don't call again, you try again 3 hours later. Yeah, it's so what I'll say for everybody out there, I don't think that there is a tried and true answer to this question that's going to, again, ring true and align for everybody. You've got to find the right cadence for yourself. So I know that, and think about your experience with salespeople. If you reach out to somebody and they're calling and texting you, and they're following up on a daily basis, at some point in time, it goes beyond follow-up to being annoying or stalking, and I'll disengage. So something similar, did business with a couple of different types of businesses. One was a restaurant, one was actually a website. And the frequency of emails that I get from these two, it got to the point where I just unsubscribed. It's not that it wasn't relevant. It's not that I'm not a good customer for them, but it was overkill. And I unsubscribed, and I won't get their marketing anymore. So I think there's some trial and error there. For me personally, I've got a email marketing list, and I'm trying to be consistent and reaching out once a week. Daily would be too much. I'm trying to post as much as I can on LinkedIn, so there's some content out there. Trial and error. You don't want to let it go out too far, but you don't want it to be overkill either.
Yeah. And obviously there's going to be different thoughts whenever it comes to like email follow-up. And if you've got a distribution list, I know some of her Paige is on here, and I know she does a lot of this type of stuff that we do, a lot of digital marketing as well. And she probably has some clients that you're going to want to do a lot of email marketing, because that's how you generate more sales and opportunities. Whereas it may be different for your specific brand. It may be where you just do it once a week, because that's not really a focus of where your customers are. Because we have clients that it may be a couple emails a day, because they're just not even seeing. And that's one, I think, misconception with the email thing, is that people are getting, I think on average, people get 150 emails a day. And that's not like busy people. That's just average.
crazy.
150 emails a day. So the chances of them actually seeing an email, especially if it's something pertaining to a marketing message, very slim to none. So if you send them another one, chances are they didn't see your first one anyway.
Sure.
It just got pushed down. So, there's obviously a lot of different things depending upon what you're doing. But as far as like following up, yeah, I think there is too much, like you were saying. I think you can do it a little too much and come across as desperate, but you definitely want to. I always recommend starting off and trying to, and you may disagree with this, I don't know, but always trying to, you do the phone call, you send them an email, and you send them a text. And if you have Messenger, and that's a form of communication you use, which is becoming more and more relevant, you send them something there too, and you let them respond back on what's best for them. Because typically, I'm a big texter. You know that. If you call me, chances are I'm probably not going to pick up right away because either I'm
earlier this week.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've seen it. Email me, it gets lost in the shuffle, and it may take a day or two for me to get back to you. Text, I get it right there, and I'm cool with it. But if you're texting me a bunch of BS, yeah, I'm going to get pissed and tell you to stop. But and I know there's some people on here that are watching on Facebook, and unless you guys are closing at 100% right now, you got to have some questions. So put something in here so we can have Ted answer those questions specific to your business. Kara, I see you're on page. What's up? Rami, what's up? Aaron, I've already said hey to you. So as well anyway.
I want to comment on something you just said, because you just hit the nail on the head with something, and you described yourself, right? So email is not the good fit for you. Phone call, you're probably not going to pick it up. And by the way, there are days where I am that person as well. Depends on who's calling me. If I don't recognize the number, I actually pick up.
Yeah.
Some people, it's just, I don't want to talk to, and I'll let it go to voicemail. But so your preference is text. So you've got the ability to find out what your customer or prospect's preference is. Fantastic. And it's one of the questions that I'll ask during the sales process is, what's the best way to communicate with you?
Yeah.
What do you prefer? Is it phone call? Is it email? Do I text? LinkedIn? And you'll get that answer. Another thing to think about, you're familiar with DISC. And I think a lot of business people are. So think about that person's DISC style too. If you can read it well, probably gives you some indication about how frequently they'll appreciate being communicated with, whether or not they like a lot of data or they don't. So think about that person who probably doesn't want a lot of data, and they're getting inundated with texts or emails.
Yeah.
You're going to disengage quick.
Well, this is one thing, and Megan just commented, basically, and this is probably a good point to talk about from your standpoint as well, is basically saying, I think the difference I see in some people email me with value after I may inquire or sign up for something. The salespeople I deem as annoying are the ones just constantly reaching out, trying to set an appointment. Same message over and over, and it's super salesy versus providing me with some value for what it is they're offering. So that brings on another point to everything. What is it? I guess one's going to be what attracted them to submit their information is going to be a big part of this. So we don't really know, but it may be do you recommend any type of style to your reps or business owners whenever they're following up and trying to get somebody to re-engage? Because I think that's a problem everybody can relate to is people ghosting them.
Yeah, how do you keep the conversation going? Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you recommend on that stuff?
So, Brad, I don't know that I'm the subject matter expert with something like that. I think Megan brings up a great point, and I align, right? So if I'm getting information, it's much different than somebody following up asking for something. So as a matter of fact, when I mentioned the emails earlier, my distribution list, I make sure that none of it is an ask. If I've got a workshop or something like that, I may put it in there. But typically what I'm doing, it's a sales-related resource, a sales management-related resource, and then there's a content offering. So sign up here for your free account. You can access it and get sales information. But none of it is, hey, I've got sales training coming up or workshop or buy here. It's none of that. So it's a push with information. And I get very few people who unsubscribe from it. It's
Yeah.
not skill, and it's the purpose is some content. It's just to give them a resource. So if I got that drip of, hey, this is something that's valuable on a rare occasion, and it's just long enough for them to keep engaged, at some point in time, I may get a client. There's a story. One of my peers had somebody on their mailing list for 4 years before they engaged. They ended up being a client, and there was a big amount of value to that business. I've got a good friend of mine who passed on an email to me, and I'll forward it to you. But he had a sales rep engage and kept trying to get him to move forward. He literally told him, "Yep, this is not the right fit, especially not at this time. Contact me in the future." And he sent me a chain of emails, and literally every other week he gets the same exact email. It's, "Hi, John, hope you're doing well. Do you have time to join me next Friday on a conference call?" And there's a series of 12 or 15 emails, and that's it. Every other week it's the same email. And he hasn't unsubscribed. He hasn't told the guy. He said, when I finally meet this guy, I'm either going to hug it out with him or I'm going to punch him in the face. I don't know which one yet. It's either funny or it's annoying.
Yeah. That's fun. That's so true, though. I think that happens a lot. Is just, yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate. What's up, Jenny? I see you just got on as well here too. So one thing I think a lot of businesses and business owners and sales reps they come across a good bit is how do I get attention? Obviously a lot of what we do from a business standpoint is all about getting attention. How do I get, maybe if I've got certain accounts that I want to get into, and I'm trying to create that opportunity, or I'm trying to just get in the door. What kind of, almost like the selling to Vito type scenario, which I'm sure you may be familiar with, but that type of strategy, is there anything specific that you tell your clients or to best way to go about doing that?
Brandon, another great question, and I'm gonna reverse you, and I'm gonna ask you what you do. I'm happy to share what I'd say, but I'll give you a hint that for me, depending on who I'm working with, my clients, I will tell them there's different techniques.
Yeah. So what I do is I try, depending upon what level of an account it is. You've got your first base, second base, third base, or however you want to put it. You got your singles, doubles, triples, and home runs.
Your squirrel, your deer, your elephant.
And each one obviously are going to have a different value as far as what they mean to my business and potentially getting them. And the higher the value, the tougher it is to get that conversation started. So typically what I recommend doing is doing research for those large ones, the home runs, doing research on them. Now that you can find pretty much whatever you want, finding out what they're interested in. It may be a football team, it may be a basketball team, it may be fishing, it may be hunting. I don't know. But what I'm going to do is put a little bit of time investment, and I'm also going to put some thought investment, and then maybe even a monetary investment. And basically being, I know that they're, for example, I've got a buddy who's a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And I know, and he runs a couple businesses, successful with him and his wife. And I know that that's kind of a soft spot for him.
Sure.
Anything Steelers. So whenever I had introduced someone to them, that was one of the first things that I brought up. Hey, if you really want to capture attention, send him something in the mail that has to do with the Steelers. And if you think it's that big of an opportunity for you, then the more investment you want to put behind it. You may spend a few $100 on a signed Ben Roethlisberger jersey. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it looks like. Maybe tickets. Mm-hmm. But what all you're trying to do is, one, capture their attention, because they're not going to not take advantage of that. And then two, they almost are going to feel like they owe you a response in a conversation. That's all you're looking for.
Yeah.
So you need to, before you do that, obviously you need to vet out that company. And if you are confident they're a great fit and you can help them, then you open up the door through those practices, and then you get in. And once you get in, you tell them specifically how you can help them. And that has worked wonders for me. Prior life that I'm in now, as far as life meaning businesses that I've worked with. And it's never not worked, to be quite honest. Now, if you don't put a monetary investment behind it, then you need to have a thought investment. And you need to find an article maybe they wrote, maybe an article they were in, maybe a publication they were in, something they were in. And whenever you send them an email, you need to point that out in the subject line of the email, and then write something about that publication or something you read in it that really identified with them. And then maybe do a soft ask at the end of, hey, look, we can definitely help you. But you've got to capture that attention. Otherwise, you're just going to get thrown out like everybody else. So anyway, that's kind of my response. It's long-winded, but that's it.
So great job. So ask you a couple questions on that, Brennan. Is it fair to say that you probably don't have the resources to do that with every single prospect you're going after? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Yeah. So those would be call it your target accounts or your key prospects.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more. In the Sandler world, because Sandler, what do you call all those things that you were talking about? That's sending the signed jersey or tickets. What would you call that?
I don't know the Sandler term. You're going to help me out there.
Remember the pattern interrupt? So
pattern interrupts. Yep.
The whole idea behind the pattern interrupt is, so think about, so whether or not you've got sales on your business card, if you're on this call, like I said earlier, whoever is customer facing, receptionist, customer service, delivery driver, they're all in sales in one way, shape, or form. So you are in sales. So keep in mind that you're having an impact on the client you're dealing with. I was going something with this and I lost my thought. The pattern interrupt. So think about the salespeople that you deal with. Salespeople are calling in on you. And it could be the telemarketers. It could be, the salespeople that you deal with. Just think of the terms that come to mind when you hear the word salesperson. So Brandon, what words come to your mind when I say salesperson?
Well, I mean, you automatically go into protective mode. Like you put your guard up.
Bingo. Yep. So when I ask that question in training, and bear in mind, I've got business owners, I've got sales managers, I've got salespeople, sales professionals that are in training. And typically I'm going to hear, used car salesperson comes up. Aggressive, greedy, slick. On occasion you get the professional or partnership, some good stuff. But the preponderance, the big percentage of the words that you hear, they're not complimentary. And these are coming from salespeople. So this is the way that we think about salespeople. You just said it too. The guard goes up. So people build up their wall. They get defensive because the thought is this person they want my wallet. They want my credit card. I don't know what they're out for, but they want my money. And so people put their guard up. So if you want to be treated like another salesperson, then look, sound, act like another salesperson. So if you want to be treated a different way, you gotta sound, act different than a salesperson would.
Yeah.
So that pattern interrupt that you do, that shirt, the jersey, the tickets to get into the door to get the conversation started, that'll do it. You can't afford to do that with everybody. So what's a pattern interrupt that you can do when you don't have that investment that you can make? It's just starting the conversation off in a different way, or maybe not giving an answer that's canned or that they're expecting.
Yeah, and one thing that makes that this made me think of, especially whenever it comes to Chandler, can't even talk now. The Sandler thing, the Sandler techniques specifically, is a pattern interrupt, which I love as well. And I'm going to get to a question that I believe Megan or somebody on the team posted as well. Whenever you're calling out, because that's where a lot of business owners start, right? That's where you start from the ground level, or if you're a sales representative, you're making cold calls. And people think that you've got to go straight into this pitch, or you've got to have something down to make these calls, when in all actuality, all you're doing is putting too much pressure on the situation. And instead, almost having a pattern interrupt right up front, and that person getting on the call and you saying, hey, look, this is a cold call. I'm not even sure if we need to be talking yet, but, or something along those lines to take that pressure off. Like, just be upfront. And I think this is going to segue into this question, but before I do that, I mean, there is a technique that you guys kind of put out there that is pressure-free, pretty much cold calling whenever you're having those conversations up front, that I think is brilliant. And it is a pattern interrupt to a certain degree, because people aren't used to that. They're used to, hey, Mr. Jones, this is so-and-so with so-and-so company and blah, blah, blah. And automatically that person starts putting up their guard and they're like, get the hell off the phone. I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
As opposed to if you come at it from a level of, hey, look, I'm a local business owner. I understand I'm cold calling you right now. I apologize if I caught you in the middle of something. Like, people will respect the hell out of that, and they're going to be more open to talk to you, right?
And honestly, the combination of words you can use, it's limitless. What you just said is right on target. It's a pattern interrupt. One of my peers uses, hey, this is a cold call. It's okay to hang up on me. And he said he's, out of thousands of calls he made, he had 3 hang-ups. And every time he got a hang-up, he called them right back. Hey, I think our phone got disconnected, and he saved 2 of those. One person hung up on again. So it is, yeah. So I'll go back to that defensive wall. Think about when you accidentally pick up the phone and you get one of those telemarketers, not the recorded ones where I'm sure I don't know if you get this one, but hey, is Hal there? Or hi, this is Susie from the recorded ones. But you get a live voice, and you're right. It's typically, hey, I'm so on and so forth from whatever company, and then straight onto a pitch. And if you're like me, I mean, I'll glaze over and I'll wait for them to stop talking and thanks, but I'm not interested. Right?
Yeah.
It's typical, right?
Yeah.
If it lasts that long, and most people just hang up. I made calls yesterday. I'll be making more calls today. Frankly, these are off of LinkedIn connections that maybe I haven't spoken with yet. And it's, hey, Brandon, this is a cold call. It's okay if you hang up. I don't use that one, but it is, Brandon, we're connected on LinkedIn. I don't know if my name rings a bell. Did I happen to catch in the middle of something?
Yeah.
So,
And I think that, I mean, that's the LinkedIn thing I want to touch on in a second. So let's circle back to that.
Sure.
But yes, I mean, you're spot on with the approach. I think that's where a lot of people get stuck before they even start, is what do you say when they pick up the phone?
How much pressure is on it? First and foremost, it's tough to pick up the phone to begin with. And you put a lot of pressure on yourself. You got to take that off, because it is an awkward. It's an awkward phone call. It's okay if you fumble your words. I do it constantly. It's actually not bad. That'll happen to you. So take comfort in that'll happen, and that's quite okay. So here's the other piece, right? I'll get people that don't want to talk to me, and that's fine. I'll get other people where, I get what are you calling about? Yeah, okay, we're connected. What are you calling about? This, and I want to. There's that wall, right? And I want to break that down as soon as I can, because I got to be talking to a human. I'm human, and I want to be talking to a human.
Yeah.
If I get that from somebody, who's like, Brandon, I'm happy to tell you what I'm calling for, but man, based on my experience, if you're already irritated by me, my guess is whatever I say next, you're going to tell me to pound sand. Is that fair?
Yeah.
And man, that'll disengage that scenario. It'll bring it down. Sometimes they'll chuckle, but typically they'll kind of sit back, and it takes that stress out of it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, that's okay too. Then back to what I said earlier, that was just a suspect. They're not a prospect. Maybe we'd be a good fit, but man, I got thousands of other people I can call behind him.
Exactly. And, talking on a lot of the things now, and especially a lot of the owners that may be on here, whether they run a medical facility or another business, they're getting inbound opportunities coming in. So inbound calls, inbound leads coming in through the website, whatever that may be. And I think a lot of the misconception whenever it comes to inbound stuff is that because it's inbound, it's still not cold. It's not cold. So they don't have to go through the whole thing, but it really is, to a certain degree. Obviously, that's why somebody who's being referred by a friend or a family to your place of business, it has a different closing rate and a completely different conversation with you than somebody who found you online and is calling to inquire about your services. And so I think that there's a bit of that misconception of, if they're calling in or they're inquiring, you still need to have some type of a script. You still need to have, that's only a small portion of the issue is getting them to inquire. You still have to do a lot of the legwork to pull them to becoming customers, which a lot of people, I don't think, there's a big misconception out there whenever you're running ads online or you're just running ads in general, thinking, well, they should already be warmed up by the time they call us. And no, we're just getting them into your sales process easier, so you don't have to find them.
I'm sure you got plenty of percentages and numbers when it comes to that type of stuff. That's your business, and I know you're an expert there. And I think where you're going with this is, so when that conversation starts, they either call you up or they're walking into your place. What do you do at that point in time? Yeah. And I'm sure from your experience with Sandler, you'll remember the pendulum, right? The 3 versus the 9. So the only I don't want to call it advice. The suggestion I'll give is be curious. So remember, if you've seen Glenn Ross, the old ABC scene, always be closing. Nope. It's always be curious, rather than closing, but always be curious. So if they're coming in or they're calling, would you mind if I ask you what prompted the call today? And just to get the dialogue going. So rather than immediately starting off with a pitch, kind of like that cold call, hey, this is Ted from Sandler Training. We do blah, blah, blah. Rather than just going right into pitch and features and benefits, get an understanding of what prompted that visit, what prompted the call. Then you get the answer. My friend uses you, and they said, I had to give you a call. Geez, that's great. I'm going to have to thank them for having you call in. We do a great job for so-and-so, but why do you think it's going to work for you? Yeah. Or something to that too. And I'm not suggesting you use those words. You got to get in your comfort zone, and it's going to differ depending on your business, but get the dialogue going so you understand a little bit more. Don't be more enthusiastic about the sale than your prospect is. Because that's
Yeah. So basically from the inbound, if somebody's running, obviously everybody's got websites. They've got, if they're running ads, they're doing marketing, they're doing advertising that's generating that inbound type opportunity. I like the always be curious type scenario, just because it kind of gives people a different way to view things. And so that's kind of a recommendation or a thought process that you recommend. Is that?
So I apologize, Brandon, but it looked like my connection was unstable and I missed half of what you said. So I apologize.
That was purposeful. Joking. So no, basically what I was saying is whenever people having the thought process of when inbound opportunities are coming in, or they get an inbound lead submission. Yep. Because I see it all the time. It's still like, just because somebody found you through a Facebook ad or a Google ad or anything like that doesn't mean that they are more warmed up than somebody you met on the street.
They may not be the right fit for your business.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's still a cold, but they're coming into your sales process through the avenue that you've created, through that advertising, that marketing. And so by having the mentality of, I'm not going to worry about closing this person. Instead, I'm going to be curious for every call that comes in, every submission. Whenever I pick up the phone to call that person that submitted their information through my website, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to question more than I am going to spit details and benefits and all this other stuff, just to kind of get them talking about what's going on or why they even submitted the inquiry in the first place, because everybody is going to need different questions answered to feel comfortable and to build that relationship with you before they decide doing business.
Yeah, you're right. And not to get too deep into the process, because it's really not complicated. It's not. But again, you nailed it on the head, right? So you don't want to get into the features and benefits and spitting information. We call that free consulting. What I need you to keep in mind is that too much information at the wrong time or to the wrong person can actually be intimidating. And it may actually push somebody away. Frankly, you may lose the sale by sharing too much information. And we can get into specifics. I don't know if there's time for that, but think about a company that offers a ton of different products or services, and they start throwing out, we do this and we do that. And they happen to overlap with their prospect and their competitor. They just blew their sale without knowing it. So don't overshare. You got to find out more. So the three things we're looking for in the sale is there a reason to do business? Is there a pain I can solve? Is there a pleasure? Some of it's not pain, but it's pleasure. And then is there budget? And budget can mean money, time, resources. It impacts your business in different ways. And then decisions, right? So it's what's the reason to do business? And if there's not an identifiable pain or a solution that we can solve, you're probably not going to close the sale. If there isn't budget, so no money, no sale, and no time. If they've got time, if they got money, but they don't have the time and you need that, that's a resource as well. No sale, no budget, no sale. If I'm talking to somebody who's not the decision maker and they're just gathering information, I become a free consultant. And I'm just getting information and I don't know exactly what they're looking for or whether or not I'm talking to a person who actually makes the decision.
So were those three, you said those were kind of three things you were looking for, or what did you call that you just said? Because I think that was very valuable.
In our terminology, we call it pain, but another way to think about this is identifying a reason to do business.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And then, so it's the three qualifiers. So ultimately, I should be trying to solve any problem before I have an understanding of whether or not they've got a problem that I can solve. If they've got the money, time, and resources, whatever's relevant, and they're willing and able to invest. They have it. Not only do they have it, but they are willing to invest that money, time, and resources in your solution. And am I talking to the decision maker? And if I'm not, what does it take for me to engage that person? Okay.
Exactly. And so, one thing to make a possible recommendation, at least something that I see from somebody who gets inbound opportunities or inbound calls, obviously, is you want to identify one of those three qualifiers or all three, right?
The more, the better.
Yeah.
And again, Brandon, you know this as well as I do. It is all about the way that you ask the questions as well. If you start asking questions and you don't get permission first, people start throwing up the defensive walls. So there's a lot to kind of keep it going, but it's human interaction. The more human you can be, the more you can break down that barrier. You step away from being that salesperson, you can actually have a one-on-one conversation. The more effective you'll be.
One question that I think is very powerful, especially from somebody who's submitting an opportunity through a website or an inbound, and then we're going to move on after this, I promise.
Sure.
But somebody from an inbound perspective or an inbound phone call, one thing that I really like is your first question, obviously, to be is you kind of set the stage or whatever, and hey, thanks for calling, blah, blah, blah. But what prompted you to submit your information to have us contact you, or what prompted you to call us today? Because you open up the world to hear their pain points right then and there. I think if you hit with that question, because I've had it done to me before, and I'm almost like, damn it. Like I didn't tell you that, but I feel obligated now. And now I've got to make something up, which is always the easiest route, is just to tell them what the hell I'm wanting. Anyway. And so it's brilliant, from my opinion. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
kind of going back to what we were talking about before. Yeah, that's the way to start off the conversation. It's why are you calling us today?
And I mean, that could honestly work for any, I mean, dentist office to a medical facility to, a laundry service to what we do. Anybody where it's, hey, what prompted you? Or if you got if you schedule a call, like that's what we do through our funnels, is we have people schedule a call. Well, it's still a cold call and I have to go through a process. But the very first question typically should always be, what prompted you to schedule this call today?
Yeah, appreciate you taking your time. Hey, out of curiosity, boom.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that all of it plays together, obviously, but that is a great way to open it up and let them talk and kind of break down their own barrier. I think, in my opinion, it sounds like you're kind of on the same track there as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, let's see, what time? I want to make sure. Okay, so we got 4 minutes. Any questions, make sure you put them in Facebook right now so we can go ahead and answer those. To finish this off, there's a lot of stuff that we can go over. An hour goes by quickly, obviously.
Sure.
And whenever it comes to sales and marketing, I mean, it's an endless stream of information that we could provide. But from a LinkedIn perspective, do you have any golden nuggets that you tell your people are an easy thing that you can do utilizing LinkedIn through connections, through InMail, through, just ways to use LinkedIn? Maybe it's just one thing that can be done. It's very easy. But do you have any nuggets of how to use LinkedIn to open up more opportunities?
So I'll think about the people so I've got Sales Navigator. I've got a third-party tool that I use with LinkedIn. And I know not everybody has that. What I'll say is one of the things that you should do is, let's just say you've got a one-on-one meeting with somebody. You're connecting with somebody that maybe is not a prospect, but you've met at networking and could be a potential business partner. Or you're just networking, getting to know somebody better. Go out and take a look at their LinkedIn profile. And if you can, and this is tough to do because when Microsoft bought LinkedIn, some of the functionality went away. So it's tougher to find out who their contacts are. But if you've got the ability, find out who their contacts are and look through the contacts to see who would be good connections for you. Better yet, go into that meeting with the agreement. Hey, would you be okay if I took a look at your contacts? And oh, by the way, why don't you take a look at mine as well? There's somebody I can introduce you to. I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah.
Just exchange information, expand your network, and obviously you can get if you can get a referral, a warm referral into, warm introduction into somebody, heck of a lot easier than trying to pick up the phone and break through.
So basically, if I'm hearing this right, and kind of break it down to even try to simplify it a little bit more for somebody like myself who doesn't catch on to things quickly. On LinkedIn, so you've got your LinkedIn profile, you've got connections, all that. You're trying to do some prospecting on LinkedIn. You know that the industry you go after, the business that you're looking for. You find people that work at that place, and you see that, it's Mike Smith. He's the VP at so-and-so company. Basically, what you're going to want to do is look and see if they're a second or third connection.
Or if you got a common contact, yeah, absolutely, that warm.
And if they're a second connection, doesn't that mean that you are connected with somebody that's connected to them?
Sure. Yeah. And I would imagine with my network or your network, I don't always know those people that I'm even connected to, which is
exactly weird. But that shouldn't deter you from possibly reaching out and saying, hey, yeah, I mean, most of the time you want it to be people but people understand. People want to stand. They understand the system of LinkedIn from time to time. So if you reach out and say, hey, we're connected, I see you're connected with them. Do you happen to know them to where you can make an introduction?
Yeah, and frankly, even if they don't understand, that's okay too.
Yeah, if you're connected, you're connected. I mean, it is what it is. But if you know them, even the better. But that is a very small thing that people can do that is very easy. It's free. And, if you look and you see their second connection, see if you're connected, who you're connected with, and ask that person if they can make an introduction. And a lot of times it happens. And it allows you to warm in, right?
And one quick thing to add into that as well, and I'll do this with me prospecting. I may make a cold call into somebody. We may spend 45 seconds on the call together, and we're not the right fit.
Yeah.
They've got no interest in talking to me. Hey, before you go, we're not the right fit, Brandon, but you got a sense of what I do. Who do you know that I should be talking to?
Yeah.
And you know what happens. Most times they're not going to come up with something. But if you don't, it's kind of like the lottery. You can't win if you don't play. If you don't ask that question, you don't get that person thinking about it. And it's not who do you know. It's not let me flip that. It's not do you know anybody. It's who do you know that I should be speaking with. Knowing what I know, knowing what I do, who do you know that I should be speaking with?
Yeah.
I've had that turn into business for me just by asking the question. I got plenty of no's nobody can think of, but that rare occasion where they do know somebody, yeah, it's golden, man. It works.
Yeah. So finishing on this, and Aaron just came in with a question, but we'll try to answer it quickly. I'm interested about this as well from your standpoint. Aaron is asking, Aaron runs an IT company. He's asking, he's saying, I often have issues trying to align, in air quotes, with younger prospects. I find it much easier to get personal and open with the 40 and up. Is there a better technique for the breaking the ice to millennials?
Wow. Do we have another hour, Brandon?
I know. And we may not be able to answer it completely, but off the top of your head, I mean, is there any recommendations you got?
Yeah, so here I am a man in his 40s as well. I don't necessarily align with people in their 20s.
Yep.
But there's a whole set of tools, and you're familiar with this, finding a rapport, right? There's a whole set of communications tools that I don't have to look or sound like a 20-year-old and still have an effective conversation. I think what I'll say is, so two things. Aaron, first off, let's have a conversation. Let's get connected because I want to find out a little bit.
I'll connect you and Aaron, and maybe through LinkedIn, and so you guys can do anything further. You can help them a little bit more, but so don't worry about that. I'll make sure you guys get connected.
Let me offer this up as well for anybody that's out there. Go to www. It's my website, Ascent, which is ASCENT. Ascent.sandler.com / it's SELL. So it's the Sandler e-learning library. You can actually sign up for a free account. When you do sign up, it's going to ask you for your name, your email. That information is going to come to me. And I may follow up with an email or a phone call, but you can tell me how you got signed up, and I'll leave you be. But you'll have access for a year, and you can sign up for it again. But there's a ton of podcasts out there, some white papers. There's access to recorded webinars, all sales and sales management related. But exactly like questions that Aaron's got, how do you do these specific things? You can find some resources out there that will help you out.
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk to you.
And I put in the comments in Facebook, but it's www.ascent, ASCENT.
That's correct. Yep.
.sandler.com /SELL.
That's correct. Yeah.
All right. So I got it in there right. Yeah. Everybody. And would you recommend people going to that if they have any other questions or want to contact you directly? Would that be the best way to do it?
They can do that. They'll have access to that website, and it'll give me their contact information. I'll follow up, and we can go from there. Sure.
Awesome. And Aaron, I'm going to connect you guys because obviously I think that there's a lot of opportunities. I think that the biggest thing with communicating, with different maybe age groups or anything like that is honestly, I mean, you just gotta have a one-on-one conversation. I mean, that is breaking it down almost here's a technique. And Ted, I hate leaving stuff and people getting off and they're like, what the hell? They didn't do anything to help me.
Actually, I should have reversed you because you know exactly what to do on this.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but what I have found, and it's very, I don't know, I don't even know what to call it, but I've found that we put way too much pressure on things, especially whenever it comes to sales, whenever it comes to conversations, whenever it comes to whatever. We put so much pressure on this stuff because we are classifying it in our brains as sales, where it all it is a conversation from one human being to another, right? Like that's what it is. And we need to figure out, does it make sense for us to continue talking about business or not? Like that's it. So if you have a struggle, you've got this block where you see a millennial and you're like, holy shit, I have no shot whatsoever. I'm just not. Obviously, it's okay to point out and tell them if you don't know what to talk about or anything, to point out and just let them know, hey, look, what are you interested in? I'm an old guy. If you consider yourself an old guy or whatever you want to be, hey, I'm somebody in my 40s, whatever. I'm somebody in my 40s. What are you into? And being upfront and bringing that out, because that's going to break down their barrier immediately, because they're probably either going to laugh or be like, or they're going to answer your question or whatever it is. But if you're just upfront and just sit down, either one, you can continue being awkward, because you don't know what to say, or you can just hit it head on and just tell them, hey, look, I struggle talking because I don't really know what to go on. What are you into? And kind of say it with a smirk. And I know, Aaron, you got a sense of humor for that. But getting out in front, it's like the whole thing about not talking about money. People are so scared to talk about money, when money a lot of times should be, our investment should be what you're talking about. Because if somebody can afford your stuff, there's no reason to continue talking about it for their sake or your sake. Why go through all that mess if you find out at the end they can't afford what you have? So you need to talk about it up front for both of you.
Absolutely.
Yep. And it's the same thing with this, Aaron. Hit it head on. And the more and more you see and you sit down and you got to do it in your own way, but you come up and you start having these conversations, the more that you see that that barrier is being broken down because you're just being upfront with them and trying to make it so it's not awkward and you can relate with them, the more and more you're going to have more confidence that you're going to go in, and then it's not going to be that much of a mental block or an issue. But I wouldn't consider that a technique. There's probably a lot more stuff that is available through, ascent.sandler.com, and more to dive on that. But that's something I have found is just being upfront, talking about what it is that could potentially be awkward, because it's either going to be awkward and they're going to leave going, that dude was awkward and I don't want to talk to him again, or you can hit it head on and it's going to make things 10 times better. So I don't know.
It's okay to be yourself. It's okay to be vulnerable. And the term okay, not okay.
Yeah, exactly. Be okay, not being okay. Confront it head on. And you're going to see a big difference. I mean, the conversation is going to completely go a different direction than you've ever had one. I promise you that. And 99% of the time, it's in a good direction. And you actually break down that barrier pretty quickly, because they're probably thinking the same thing to you, Aaron. If you're, mid-40s and they're a 20-year-old, they're probably like, hell, what am I going to talk to him about? So it's probably going both ways a little bit. But hopefully that helps, at least, if anything, can give you a little bit different, that it's okay to just point it out. Like, you're just trying to have a human conversation to see if you guys should continue talking.
That's all it is. Dialogue.
So I know we went over here. This is going to be recorded and put back on. Obviously, it's going to stay on Facebook if you need to watch it. If you have any questions, Ted, how can they? I know I've got you in the group now, so I appreciate you coming in and being a part of that. They can ask you questions through there. Just tag them, connect with them on LinkedIn. What else?
Sure. No, and Brendan, thanks again. I appreciate the invite. Cell phone number is 770-722-4081. If you don't reach me live, leave me a voicemail. Email address is my name. It's ted.rykoski, Rykoski, @sandler.com. And again, that ascent.sandler.com/sell will get you your free registration. Happy to answer questions, hop on the phone with anybody. Again, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you, man. Thanks for taking the time. I know you're busy. So anyway, sorry we ran over a little bit, but everybody have a good weekend, and we will see you next week about the same time. Appreciate it, Ted. Have a good one.
Take care, man. Be well. Bye, everybody.